Hello and welcome, seekers of truth and champions of faith, to the Faith Forge podcast.
I'm Cheyenne, and joined by
Marco.
Together, we're on a quest for deeper understanding and richer spiritual lives.
In each episode, we'll tackle the tough questions, explore the uncharted territories of faith, and challenge ourselves to live out the seemingly radical teachings of Jesus Christ.
Get ready for a podcast that's not hard to ask the hard questions and seeks to uncover the profound beauty in the Christian journey.
All right, and like I said, my name is Marco, and we're starting this podcast right here in our church, Life Fellowship Church here in Deltona, Florida. And so for those of you listening, we're really glad that you found us, and we've got a lot to talk about. The goals of our podcast, I think the goals are to just talk about how the Christian faith applies or may not apply to certain things going on in the world around us. So with that being said, let's talk about the big thing that's going on right now that everybody's talking about, besides the storm that's going on outside right now. It is about 9:00 p.m. for us as of this recording.
Give or take.
Yeah, but there's a huge storm, so if you guys hear some like lightning and thunder, it's just God speaking. That's all it is. It's just God. But no, seriously, the main issue of the day, what everybody seems to be talking about, what everybody wants to have an opinion on, is this Israeli-Palestinian conflict going on in the Middle East. Have you heard about this?
I've heard bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces, yeah. I've been seeing it everywhere. I actually have a TikTok channel about this Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Basically, the Palestinians live on the Gaza Strip. Okay, it's a little piece of land bordering the Mediterranean Sea with Israel on the other side of it. So literally, if you can imagine the Mediterranean Sea and then Israel, there's this little small strip of land. It's not little, it's a good sized piece of land where millions of Palestinians live, and there's just this huge border that they share that's all land. And at some point last year, the Hamas, who is the governing body of the Gaza Strip, decided to send a military-style attack over this wall. There's a wall that separates, like literally what everybody envisions Donald Trump's wall was going to be. Yeah, they have that over there bordering the Gaza Strip and Israel proper. And they have a name for it. I've heard it. I think it's called the Iron Gate or the Iron Cross. It's like Israel, the IDF, which stands for the Israeli Defense Force, because their whole military is based upon the idea they have to defend themselves from attacks coming in. Okay. Yes. And so the IDF has like guns and anti-missile emplacements and, anti-aircraft batteries and soldiers posted along this mile long border.
It's like the Great Wall of China.
Yeah, but exactly. But with today's technology, It's insane. And there's checkpoints and everything. And so they decided to send just this huge attack over the wall, and they sent people over the wall and they just attacked Israelite citizens, like people in Israel, families, non-combatants, didn't matter. One source I heard, they just literally parachuted over. They got in like hang gliders and flew, jumped off of tall buildings and parachuted across. So that way, since it's just a single group of people, you couldn't gun them all down, right? Mm-hmm. You couldn't even see them on radar because they're too small. It wasn't like a jet or a missile going over. They just parachuted over and they just did like straight up blitzkrieg.
This is a launch a brutal terror attack from the Gaza Strip on October 7th.
Yeah, October 7th. Yeah, so yeah, literal blitzkrieg. They jumped over the wall. They got in there and they just committed heinous acts of terror against Israeli citizens. And if I'm correct, the death toll was up above 1,000. And they took a bunch of civilians, dragged them back across the border into Gaza, and essentially enslaved them, beat them, assaulted them physically, sexually in some cases, and just really, really did terrible, terrible, awful things to the Israeli people. And so this, of course, is not, this is not along the lines of all of the random things that they get, because apparently Israel has reported like just constant smaller scale terrorist attacks, like, you know, people throwing grenades over the wall, or, you know, trying to launch little RPGs over the wall and things like that. Like, not that. This was a full on large, wide scale attack to go over this wall. And they killed a lot of people, innocent people, people that are not part of the Israeli Defense Force. And the thing with the people that govern the Gaza Strip, they're not really that well organized. They don't really have a like military per se. They have people that they assign to military positions, but when they carry out these attacks, these are like proper terror attacks. They're not that organized. It's just I envision
it's like, here's a gun, take which one.
Yeah. Hey, who wants to do this? Like, I imagine that they're just like in a public forum and they're like, who wants to go kill some Israelis?
Yeah,
and then a bunch of random guys are like, yeah, and then they jump over the wall and they do this for Allah or whatever they said. Yeah. And the thing is, it's just crazy. So obviously, after this happened, the Israeli Defense Force and the people in charge of the Israeli parliament decided that they were going to start a war. They're like, this is enough. This is way beyond what the normal scope of your little skirmishes are. This was organized. This was purposeful. And it just attacked our citizens. It wasn't like, oh, you just decided to just drive a car bomb into one of our gates. Like, and they've done that before too. It was beyond that. It was, we are going to invade your territory and we are going to hurt your citizenry. Yep. Yeah. And so this happened. And I know for those of you that are listening, and if you are just catching this, you might go, oh, well, that guy is totally on the side of Israel. Well, yeah, I'm going to say that I am, but I will say this, that there has definitely been a response back from Israel that isn't equivalent.
And what is it?
I mean, they invaded all of the Gaza Strip. It was like, I heard this story one time where the U.S., they got like one ship attacked. Like one ship, it was like the equivalent of like a huge carrier ship getting attacked by some pirates. And then they just went and sank the other country's entire like navy in response. It was like that level. It was like, oh, you poked a bear? Fine, we're gonna eat your entire family. Like that's like that. It's that level response. So I will say that it hasn't been an equivalent response, but at the same time, what are you supposed to do? You know, like I look at this, and as a Christian, I want to support Israel.
Right.
I want to say that Israel is doing the correct thing, because a bunch of Israelis died for no reason. And I think about what would happen, and as an American, I think about this too, as an American, Israel is one of our allies.
Yep.
So when somebody is an ally of ours, that's our friends. That is effectively like our family over there. Yeah. These people we should care about when they get killed unjustly, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, if you were, let's just say when we're talking about like terms of that type of tribalism, right? Let's just say that you're out at a club with some of your friends and you're young and, you know, you're just trying to have a good time. Maybe you're not doing liquor or whatever, you know, maybe you're just trying to go out dancing.
You'd be the designated driver.
Maybe you're the designated driver, as you should be. You should not drink.
Yes, correct.
But we know the reality. Let's just say, for everyone listening, let's just say you go out and you're partying, you're having a good time, and somebody comes out and punches one of your friends in the face. Maybe they've had a little bit too much to drink,
right,
and they confuse your friend for something else, or maybe your friend bumped into them, and you know they decide to just
they
full on punch your friend in the face, and then you go, well, your friends should defend themselves, right? Maybe you should even jump in and protect your friend and help them. But what do you do when your friend pulls out a Glock 19 and lets that person have it.
That's where you gotta choose between right and wrong.
Right, and that's what today's
That's
all
what
about.
nobody is doing. Everybody's forgetting those
Right.
those three words, right and wrong.
Right, and that's where things get really confusing, because that's effectively what just happened
Correct.
here in this situation where, don't get me wrong, people died in the Israeli in the attack by Hamas on Israeli land.
Yep.
So people really did die, and there's a lot that we can deep dive into that. But at the same time, the amount of damage and destruction that they did in response, I guess it kind of comes down to how much do you value a life?
Yeah.
How much do you value not just your life, but how do you place an appropriate amount of retaliation when someone dies? How do you pay for that? What are your thoughts on that? Like, obviously, again, knowing that Hamas went over, killed innocent civilians that had nothing to do with any kind of fight or anything. I mean, some of these families that you see in these pictures are real families, just like anybody sitting here in America. All right, a lot of people think of when you're in Israel, when you're in Palestine, you think it's like a third world country. It really isn't. These are well-developed countries. This would be like somebody, we're here in Florida, somebody just randomly landing on the beach in Daytona Beach, running into Deltona, which is like a huge residential community, and just dragging people out of their houses in the streets and killing them. Throwing grenades inside houses, killing men, women, children. It doesn't matter. So
I'd be angry.
You'd be angry.
Yeah.
But at what point, if we knew who was responsible for that, at what point do you go, that was an appropriate retaliation, or that was over what would be an appropriate retaliation? And it's tough.
It is, because it goes right back to what's the right and wrong in all this.
Yeah.
Like, why are they doing it? What's the reason you're doing it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's two sides to this coin.
Exactly.
Because when I look at this, and this conflict, just for those of you that don't know, this conflict goes back a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, and don't judge me if you're listening, I pulled up the Wikipedia page. Okay, people always get mad about Wikipedia. It's not verified. Blah blah blah. It's like whatever.
Listen, it's what you got, so you
Listen,
use what you got.
Yeah, you use what you got. But I pulled up the Wikipedia page, and there's literally a wiki on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah.
And in the very first page of this, it says the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is an ongoing, as in it's going on now, and it's been ongoing for a while, military and political conflict in the Levant beginning in the mid-20th century. It is one of the world's longest continuing conflicts. The current Israeli-Palestinian status quo began following Israeli military occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, known as the Palestinian territories, in the 1967 Six-Day War. 57 years. There are people who have been born, lived their entire lives, and died of relatively old age. I mean, 57 is not that old, but
no.
You know what I mean? Like, people have been born and died, and they didn't die young. They died at an appropriate age for whatever their lifestyle was in the time that this conflict has been going on since the Six-Day War. And it's crazy because it was a 6-day war. It wasn't even that big of a war. But apparently it goes back even further than that. It says the 1917. So now we're going back greater than 100 years. Balfour Declaration issued by Britain, which we can get into that. Like, why is Britain even involved in this? Which promised creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, created early tensions in the region after waves of Jewish immigration. Following World War I, Mandatory Palestine was established, which saw tensions growing into open sectarian conflict between Jews and Arabs. The 1947 United Nations partition plan for Palestine was never implemented and provoked the 1947-1949 Palestinian War. So these people have been fighting for a very, very long time. The aftermath of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War saw the area of former mandatory Palestine split, with Israel established on most of the territory and Egypt and Jordan controlling the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Respectively, another war erupted in 1967, which saw Israel occupying the Gaza Strip, West Bank, Golan Heights, and the Sinai Peninsula, which all remained occupied today except for the Sinai, returned to Egypt in a peace treaty in 1979. Jordan, which annexed the West Bank in 1950 and held it until 1967, relinquished its territorial claim over to the Palestinians in 1988 and signed a peace treaty with Israel in 1994. So this is really interesting because what this is telling us, and what this tells me, is that not only has this been going on forever, before I was even born, before you were born, before he was born, before most of the people that even have an opinion on this were even born.
Yes.
Right? This started so far ago, but yet they haven't been able to come with a resolution.
Right.
So when I look at this, I see that it's also not the first time that Israel had to occupy the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because there was a conflict back then. This is all about, I think, Arabs and Jews just not liking each other.
Cool.
Having a difference in opinion over who deserves this place to be their home. And what's funny is that when you go and you listen to both sides of the story, it seems like the Israelis say that they've been there forever, and the Arabs say that they've been there forever. But
who has technically been there longer, though?
Right. And then it goes into where people start arguing Zionism, because they say, well, the Bible says that this land belongs to the Israelites, so therefore it should belong to the Israelites. And then the people who oppose that idea are going, oh, you're just a Zionist. You only believe that because your religion tells you that, where that might not necessarily be true.
Right.
And then you even have some Arabs. I wish I could find the video, but there was a video where there was an Arab who I presume was Muslim, who literally said that most of the Palestinians really hold no claim to the area, and that it belongs to Israel. And not only does it belong to Israel, but all of the people that live in Palestine are what could only be described as ethnic mutts.
Yes.
Where they're a displaced people that come from like Romans and everything, and basically this Arab guy basically called the Palestinians the actual colonizers.
Yes.
And he said, and I wish I could find this video, but he basically said that these people are toxic wherever they go.
Yep.
And then that's why Egypt didn't want them. Yep. And that's actually why, and it said here that basically Jordan didn't want the Palestinians in their country. Mm-hmm. So they forced them all into the West Bank and say, here, you can have this piece of land. Stay out of our country.
Yep.
Which kind of makes sense because right now, Egypt has closed their borders to any refugees, as far as I know. I could be wrong. Maybe somebody listening to this can correct me, debunk it, whatever. But as far as I know, Egypt has closed their borders. And they said, we don't want any Palestinians crossing this border at all.
Yep.
And then also Jordan did the same thing.
Yep.
So these two countries have both closed their borders, and they say, we don't want any Palestinians in our country at all, right?
Y'all got yours, we got ours.
Yeah, and they said, we don't want any part of this. And I think to myself, well, wait a minute. Isn't Egypt and isn't Jordan, aren't they allies of the Palestinian people? Supposedly. Why would they not? If Israel was really doing something that was like bad for the area, wouldn't these other countries want to step in? Or maybe it's because they don't want to do it because they don't want to become involved in the conflict, and they don't want the big bad United States getting mad at them because we are Israeli allies. So I don't know what the impetus behind all of this is and why they're doing it, but it seems to me that maybe they're just not really happy with Hamas technically being a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want the radicals that cause all of these issues with Palestine and with Israel seeping into their countries and causing problems.
Right.
Which there has been evidence of that. Right? So, and again, I'm going into this whole thing where I'm just kind of standing on this soapbox and I'm going, the Palestinians are bad, the Palestinians are bad. But the truth is, I still feel for the Palestinians. Yeah,
you're being stagnant about it.
Because the Palestinians are getting killed.
Yeah.
They are effectively completely as of I think a few days ago there was something posted that the Palestinians, they lost the war. That Egypt had pushed them all the way back in and had taken over the entire Gaza Strip. They are fully occupied. And apparently there's some sources say that they're in an open air concentration camp. And if that's true, then that's bad too. That's terrible. Why would you, what does that even mean? What do they mean by open air concentration camp? They've actually accused the Israelis of apartheid, which is, basically racism. Just treating them poorly because of their race as Palestinians.
Going all the way back to what you said earlier,
Yeah.
the Gaza did kill 15,000 people, including 10,000 women and children, over 50 days.
The Gazans did?
Yeah, making it the deadliest war for the Palestinians enclave till date, is what it says.
Okay, so 15,000 Israelis died?
Yeah,
Wow.
according to this is what it says.
So yeah, that's even worse than I thought. But I mean, it is a full scale war.
Yeah.
So 15,000 Israelis have lost their lives, but from what I understand, a lot more Palestinians have died.
And then going on more to that, it says Israel has rebuffed calls for a ceasefire as a 4-day humanitarian truce comes to an end on November 28th. It is unclear whether the truce will be extended.
Wow. So they got to the point of a ceasefire.
Pretty much.
And then they were like, nah, we're done with that ceasefire. Yep. The thing is like, if I know anything about a terrorist organization and the way they operate, oftentimes if they call for a ceasefire, a lot of times it's just so that they can plan to do more heinous things.
Because you're from a military background, correct?
Yeah. I served in the Army for a little bit, but I never. I want to be clear that I never did any like active combat. Yeah. But I have studied it. I've had a lot of friends that did serve overseas and fought over there in those situations. But like oftentimes it's almost like a sneaky tactic, right? It's like hey, I don't want to fight anymore. Hands up, and then next thing you know,
white flag.
Yeah, white flag, and then next thing you know, they're like, haha, made you look, and then there's somebody coming up behind you stabbing you in the back. So like I can kind of see why, with everything that's been going on with this conflict for years and years, that the Israeli people don't trust the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, it's hard for me to say that they should.
Yeah.
Because as far as I know, neither does Egypt.
No.
Neither does anyone else in that region. They don't trust the Palestinians. No. As a matter of fact, I believe that there was a conflict in Egypt with the Palestinians where they literally had to push them out using military force. They're like, get out. They push them out. That's why they shut their border down.
Yeah.
It's one of those moral dilemmas that Christians and non-Christians have to cope with.
Yeah.
Because you've got people on both sides. You've got people running around saying, free Palestine, support Palestine. And you got people saying, support Israel. Mm-hmm. So there are people who are on both sides of this argument. And as a Christian man, I have like a humanity side in me that just absolutely hates war.
Right.
I don't like the idea of war. Jesus teaches us to turn the other cheek in the face of aggression. Right?
But then there comes a time where, like you were saying, there comes a time where, yes, you can turn your cheek, but in the end there are times where you have that feeling where you can't. Where it's like you want to engage in it. You really do. But then there are times where like you're going to engage in it.
Yeah, and it's tough because as a Christian you almost want to say that the Bible gives you conflicting morality when it comes to this, right?
Yes,
because
definitely.
Jesus teaches us to turn the other cheek, but at the same time God teaches us that his word is righteous, and he's even, especially in the Old Testament, he's instructed his faithful to go and kill other people because of their unrighteousness. Mm-hmm. So, ultimately as a Christian, you're balancing your own moral compass where it's like like I said, the humanity side says, I don't like war, I should turn the other cheek. But then the righteousness of God's side tells me that you can't allow evil to continue with the evil.
Exactly.
How do you get past this? I guess as what I'm saying as a Christian. But then there's the non-Christian, because everyone has two sides to their coin.
Yes.
I wasn't always a Christian.
No.
There was a time in my life where I wasn't a Christian. I hadn't accepted Christ. I lived life for myself. Mm-hmm. And remembering back to how I would have thought about this, I would have been like, you know what? Those Palestinians, they messed around and they found out, didn't they? And that's kind of like where I think that some people look at it is they go, you almost have three ideologies. You have the Christian ideology of, oh my gosh, Israel shouldn't be going and hurting all
Right.
these people. Maybe they should defend themselves better, whatever, and they should learn to forgive and forget and move on, But then you have the Christian side where it's like, that's God's people. The Israelites are God's people, and that is the land that He promised them. And all of those other people, all of those Muslims and the people that, Hamas and all, they are evil, and they should pay for their crimes.
Yes.
Because eventually, that Christian side of you is going to know that they will all be judged anyhow. So that kind of opens up that moral dilemma. But then there's these other side there, and interestingly enough, before I get into that, there's a lot of people that share the turn the other cheek side.
Yeah.
Even if they're not Christian.
Yeah.
But then you have this third side where it's just like rah, go get them. They shouldn't have done that. You should not have jumped that board and hurt those people.
It's like one of those moments where, using a reference, Shrek, for instance, it's like an onion. They got layers.
It's got layers.
Each one of these layers is like, this is A, B, and C. Now you're gonna do E, F, G. Figure it out.
Yeah. So as a Christian, I have a really hard time with this whole scenario, because my heart bleeds for the innocent children.
No, because they don't know what's going on.
They
have
don't
no
know
idea
what's going on.
Yeah.
And these adults that are raising these children over there, they're raising them with hate. That's something that we deal with
Every
in
day.
modern day life
Yeah.
everywhere. You have it here in the United States where you have a lot of children that are being raised with hate.
And I hate, and I hate to, going on with what you're saying, and I hate to say this, but also it goes along with the children that go to schools and bring their dad's gun to school, and then you see all these things that happen in these schools. It's the parents.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah. So it's hard for me. It's hard for me to feel bad for anyone over there but the children that have lost their lives.
Same.
Because they truly don't have it. They truly don't have a choice in the matter. But at the same time, I like to think that maybe God will have compassion for those children, and maybe they'll still have a chance to be in heaven. I'm not entirely sure as a Christian. I mean, my Christian faith tells me, and my experience tells me that the children are going to be saved.
Yes.
But I don't know how that really works, and maybe I need to pray about that a little bit more. But I really do feel that they've lost their lives, and the women too, because honestly, when you think about how that culture works, how those women are treated on a whole, they're basically treated like slaves in a lot of situations, and not all the time, but like if you really think about it, like, could you imagine the amount of gaslighting that some of these Muslim women have to go through? And again, I'm not hating on any specific person, but let's be honest.
Just in general.
Yeah, let's be honest. When you look at radical Muslims, and if you've ever gone into the Quran and you read about how women are treated, the Christian Bible tells us that when we marry women, we are to submit to our wives as Jesus submitted to the church.
Yes.
We're to treat our wives with respect, with the same amount of love that Christ treated the church. That's how you're supposed to treat your wife. If you're a Christian out there and you are mistreating your wife, I don't think that you truly understand what Christianity tells you to do. And you need to go to church, and you need to get some Christian marriage counseling, and you need to treat your wife better. But in the Muslim religion, as far as I know, and somebody can debate me on this, there are passages in the Quran that literally say that when women are saved and they go to when they go to the Muslim heaven, that they're just going to be sitting there being deflowered over and over again by men. Like, and it's just like, what? Well, what about that is what a Muslim woman would want? And maybe they're just gaslighted into believing that that's what they want.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's perverted and it's weird. And nothing in Christianity tells you that that's what's going to happen to women when they go to heaven.
Yeah.
They say the Quran talks about, and this is something that a lot of people know about, like the 42 virgins or whatever.
I've heard of that.
And when a good Muslim man commits jihad and he goes out and does some heinous act in the name of Allah, he's promised 42 virgin women in the afterlife that he can repeatedly deflower every single day, and that the good Muslim women are going to be one of those 42 virgins. Like, what kind of life is that? What kind of afterlife is that? What kind of God is that?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. You need to understand the cultural differences there. So as a Christian, when you start to think about, Muslim, and the crazy part about that is that a lot of Muslim women, I've seen these lives. You can go on TikTok, you can watch these lives where these Muslim women, they're Muslim and they claim being Muslim, and then they get on these and they talk to like a man who knows the Quran. Like there's one guy, I can't remember his name, but he's like a reformed Muslim. Mm-hmm. He converted from Muslim to Christianity, and he goes on these lives and he talks to Muslim women who go on there to debate him, and he goes, "Hey, did you know the Quran says this?" And they're like, oftentimes they're like, "No, I had no idea." They're like, "No, I didn't know that." And he's like, "Yeah, open up your Quran and read it." Or is it that Muslim men gaslight the Muslim women into like not reading those parts of their holy Quran? It's terrible. It's terrible if you think about it. So that's what these women and children are dealing with.
It's like you're missing a whole part of your history.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, the person can ask them, and then you get the deer in the headlight look. It's like, bro, you don't know about your history?
Yeah.
Hello.
You don't know about the religion that you've been following all this time?
Exactly. It's like, cool, you're following it, and yes, you're born into it, but you know nothing of it.
Yeah.
That goes along with Christianity. You're born into it, but you know nothing of it.
I love that you said that, because it's true. A lot of people are born into Christianity, and a lot of people reject Christianity because they just don't know what Christianity is all about.
And nobody's taken the time to teach them. Like, this is the book, this is what was said, written in stone, everything like that. But you don't physically know that was the story.
And that's why we're called the Faith Forge podcast. We are forging faith here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're forging faith. But going back to what we were saying, the Christian in me wants to be like Christ and wants to show love to these people. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see the Jewish people marching across these lines, enslaving these people, killing these people, doing all these different things, because the Christian in me says that I should love all people, that I should love my neighbor, that I should love my enemy.
Yep.
That's what the Christian in me tells me. So I am very, very torn in this situation. But at the same time, I look at the ruling party over there, the Hamas, the radical Muslims, and how they treat their own people, and how they treat their women, and how they treat their children. And I look at all of this and I go, how can I feel bad? And I think that's where you can look at it from a moral standpoint without even being a Christian. You don't need to be a Christian to look at those people over there. And you look at the Israeli people, and you may not, let's just for a moment, and I know you're on a Christian podcast, but and Christianity is a religion, whether you like it or not. It is a religion. It is a subset of beliefs and things that you do. Yep. Right? Let's take all religion out of the scenario.
Yep.
Right? Let's do that. Let's take religion completely out. All right? Let's just say we're all on equal ground, and we have no religion, we have no faith, we have nothing. Mm-hmm. You have a country that takes care of its citizens, mm-hmm. where they have some of the highest age average for death. Like, I think their average age is in the 80s. They have some of the best health care in the world.
Yeah.
They have one of the best economies in the world. They are like consistently rated high in education and everything that you can judge a nation outside of religion, everything that you can judge a nation based upon how it treats its own citizens and treats other people. And the happiness factor in Israel is generally really good. Okay? Mm-hmm. You take that and you go, wow, this country treats its citizens with respect and decency. You could even say, and I hate to say it because I'm American, you could even say that they treat their citizens better than Americans treat their citizens, than the United States government
You're only
treats its
speaking the
citizens.
truth.
Yeah, I hate to say it, and I hate to admit it because I'm American. I'm red, white, and blue through and through, straight down to the
Read
bone.
it anyway. We
You know? I
I
carry a 45 with me everywhere I go because my
Yes.
freedom rounds need to fly if they have to. But here's the point that I'm trying to get at. Now, no religion
No.
needed. You have this country, that's Israel. Then you have this other country
No.
that is one of the poorest countries in the world. Okay? Where its government receives millions of dollars of aid
Yep.
every single year from countries, even from the United States. By the way, guys, the United States sends Palestine money.
Yes,
And
they do.
what does that government do over there? What does Hamas do? They use it to build makeshift crappy rockets to shoot at Israel. They don't better the lives of their citizens. They have one of the lowest literacy rates in the world. There are people starving over there. And everyone wants to blame Israel. They go, oh, Israel's putting this blockade. Israel's doing that. Let me explain something to you guys, okay? Israel shares a land border. Israel is landlocked. If Palestine was taking 25% of the money that they were getting, and instead of shooting at Israel, if they were building boats and starting up commerce with other countries and doing anything, I mean fishing, like all the things that you can do in the Mediterranean Ocean, if they could do any of that stuff and better the lives of their citizens, then they would be fine.
Yeah.
There would be no starvation. They can invest in their schools.
Yes.
They could have better welfare programs.
Mm-hmm.
But no, what do? They want to go and commit jihad against the country that shares a border with them because they don't like them. So now, taking religion out of it, again, I know I said jihad, but they just want to attack that country. So taking religion completely out of it, who would you think is right in that situation? It's hard for me, again, I'm taking religion directly out of it, but you agree, Israel, right? Because you have one country. I would almost say this, and this is super radical, and I'm probably, some people are going to cut the podcast out. They're going to cut it off right now as I say this. I almost want to say that it would be better if Israel took complete control of Gaza and became the ruling government there.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, they would take better care of the Palestinians than Hamas.
Yes.
Let all of the Palestinians that survived the conflict and almost, I mean, this is super radical, but let all of them just become citizens of Israel and fall under their rules and just go, hey, we're now all Israelites.
Yep.
Unify the whole nation and let the Israeli government take care of them. But here's the thing. Now we have to put religion back into it.
Oh no.
Do you think that's going to happen?
No.
No, it's not going to happen, because what's going to happen is that the Israelis, that's a Jewish state.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they're going to want to put Jewish law. They're going to want to get rid of all the Muslims. They're going to tell all the Muslims that they can't practice their religion there. Right? Mm-hmm. And then the Muslims are going to fight back. They're going to be like, I don't want to be under the rule of some Jew. And then it's going to all start all over again.
Yeah. It's a never-ending cycle.
And this is where so many like atheists and people in the political sciences say, and just a lot of people, they say, religion complicates everything.
Yes, it does.
There's
no sugarcoating it.
There's no sugarcoating.
There's no sugarcoating. It does.
It complicates everything. So now you have to choose sides.
So right and wrong.
As a Christian, you have to choose sides. So as a non-Christian, I hope that I've convinced you to choose the side of the Israelites because of, hey, they treat their people better than the other side treats their people, and the other side just wants to go and kill them. Like at the end of the day, that's the argument there.
It's like, here's your gun, go play.
So is Israel right outside of religion? Are they right to defend themselves?
Yes.
I think so. I think they are right to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Are they do they have a right to go and stop themselves? Because when you're talking about defending yourself, what do you think is the best kind of defense in a conflict situation?
Communication.
Communication? What if the other side doesn't want to communicate?
then that's where you gotta choose between the right and wrong. Do you think communicating with them would be better, or do you think just blaring your guns at each other is gonna make it all better?
Okay, so let me clarify, because I think you and I, I'm trying to go to a certain point, and you are saying exactly what I think probably made sense 100 years ago.
Yeah.
But like now, let's add all the context. All right, I'm sure that Israel and Hamas have tried to open up communication, and they don't want to agree with each other. They just won't. Right. So when you get to that point where there is no agreeing on the facts of a dispute, right? You cannot agree on the facts of the dispute. And one side is consistently attacking the other side. What is the best defense for the side that's getting attacked?
That I don't know.
It's to destroy the side that's doing the attacking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the truth, right? The coaches, you probably heard like football and basketball coaches say this before. The best defense is a good offense, right?
Yeah.
But then people say the best offense is a good defense. So it's kind of like this
never-ending cycle.
Yeah, this never-ending cycle where it's just like, at this point, Israel has been defending themselves, but the offense is not relenting, because this is real life. It's not a game. There's no end really in sight. So what do? You end the game.
Yeah.
You go over there.
It's like you said something earlier about Super Mario. It's like this is A, this is B, and this is C. There's a beginning to his story. There's a middle to his story. Now there's an end. Where in real life there isn't one. This is how it is.
Yeah. We're very much up until this point. We've been seeing the beginning and the middle.
Yeah.
And now Israel has kind of been like, okay, we need to put an end to this. But the crazy part, it's not even the end, right? Because we saw that they've actually occupied the Gaza Strip before, and it didn't bring an end to it.
Nope.
So at what point do you pick a side on this? I mean, and that's where we got to bring religion back into it, because I wouldn't call myself a Zionist. I wouldn't say that the Israeli people have a right to the land purely because the Bible says it.
Yes.
I say that the Israeli people have a right to the land because they've been there longer. This is their land. They've occupied it, way before any current government was even in place. Mm-hmm. And there's proof to that. And people want to go, okay, well, what about the last 100 years?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, going back to this Balfour Declaration, I was looking at this Balfour Declaration that happened in 1917. And I thought that this was really important to this. The Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917, this was over 100 years ago, during the First World War, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Then an Ottoman region with a small minority Jewish population. The declaration was contained in a letter dated 2nd November 1917 from the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild, a leader in the British Jewish community, for transmission to the Zionist Federation of Great Britain and Ireland. The text of the declaration was published on the press 9th of November 1917. So at some point, the Ottoman Empire, which was just, if you ever look up the Ottoman Empire, just a huge empire that conquered a bunch of land, took over everything. Palestine was just a region. It wasn't even really a country.
Yeah, it wasn't really a thing.
It was just a region with a bunch of displaced people from all over the Arabian region of North Africa, basically the Middle East.
Yes.
I mean, Palestine was just this huge region. And, Britain at that time basically said, we have a lot of Jewish people. This is their ancestral home. We want them to live here.
Yeah.
We've defeated the Ottomans, right? The Ottomans are no more. And now we got to divide all this land that they had up to the original people that lived there. And so the British had control of that. But all they did is they were like, hey, this is the ancestral home of the Egyptians, all these different people, all this area controlled by the Ottoman Empire, and we can look this up because this is important for context. But it says the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, controlled a huge area. I mean, this area was massive, and in 1914 they controlled.
Oh wow.
Do you see how big this area? I mean, it was
Yeah.
all the way into Europe. This was a huge area. All the way down the Middle East, all the way up towards Russia, all the way across into like Europe, like all the Asia. They had parts of North Africa, Asia, Europe. They had like huge places. This was the Ottoman Empire. So the Turkish Empire, the people from Turkey, basically conquered all this land at some point during history, and then they were dismantled. And the British basically looked at all these places and said, all right, let's return these places back to their ancestral people.
Yeah.
And so they were like, and the Jews had no place. They had no country at that point. A lot of these places didn't have their own country at this point. There's a lot of people. And so the British, at that point, basically knew history. And they were like, hey, we're going to divide this up.
Yep.
And they gave the Israelites back their ancestral home. And so after that, people were just mad because at that point, the whole thing was the Ottoman Empire. And people were shuffled. I like to think that people were shuffled around in there and moved and deployed and placed here and placed there. But there's no denying it that at some point, this area known as Palestine was the Jewish homeland. It's where the Jews came from. It's where they were. This is not even like wholly and solely based on the Bible. This is based on historical documentation that people had and the people that lived there.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, you're like, hey, this is their ancestral homeland. And so they were placed there over 100 years ago, and they were like, hey, this is where these people are supposed to be.
This is where we were first. This is
where they come from.
Yeah.
This is their homeland.
Exactly.
So can we really fault them for wanting to be in their ancestral homeland?
Nope.
I mean,
They had it first.
Yeah, that sounds rich for an American to be saying, right? When you think about how all the land that we live on, and I'm not even laughing. I'm definitely not laughing about it. I'm sort of finding jest in my own words as I live on this land that once belonged to Native Americans.
Yes.
You know, but at the same time, I'm a Native Islander. So, you know, I'm not considered a Native American, but technically I am a Native North American.
Yeah.
Because I'm only like 2 generations removed from Taino Indians.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm only 2 from Taino Indians on both sides of my family, my mother and my father. From Cuba and Puerto Rico. I'm only 2 generations removed. That's why a lot of people say I look like Maui.
Yes. he's our Maui of the church.
Yeah. But I'm only 2 generations removed from native Taino ancestry. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so you know when I think about it, like it almost sounds rich me saying like, hey, they deserve their ancestral homeland, and
but you have a reason to say it though.
Yeah, and it is true. Like if it was up to me, and at this point, I would say, hey, if you still have your native lineage about you and you still have your native culture and all of that about you, you deserve the land that your ancestry came from. And I mean, that's why we have a lot of like Indian reserves and stuff like that. But at the same time, I should say Native Americans. I think that's more PC, right? Like politically correct. But like if the Native Americans rose up, so like let's just lay this out there, because this is, again, we're talking about, we don't want to just be honed in on one side of the argument. No. If the Native Americans rose up and they're like, we want our ancestral homelands back. Yeah. How quickly would we be like, all right, let's kick out all the white people. Let's kick out all the black people. Let's kick out anybody who doesn't have Native American. Yeah. Let's anybody, if you don't have any kind of Native American in you, you don't deserve to be here. Let's just push you out. Yep. And so that's kind of what's happening over there in Palestine. Yeah. So it's exactly what's happening. It's so complicated.
It is. It very much is. But again, it also goes back to where's the right and wrong.
Where's the right and wrong?
Yeah. Who should we go with and who should we not go with? You got the ones like you are going for the Israelis. You got the ones that go for the Palestinians. In the end, you choose who you want to choose. Yeah. But in the end, you're also going to be questioning what's my right and wrong.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately that is true for people who aren't Christians.
Exactly. You got ones that know that there is a higher power, and then you have ones that know and feel that there isn't a higher power. That there's some type of spiritual thing that's out there that's doing all of this craziness.
So at the end of the day, Cheyenne,
Yes, Marco.
what do you think that Christians, do you think that Christians should even pick a side here? It's a tough question.
That is a tough question. Honestly, my opinion, me being Cheyenne,
Okay.
my honest opinion, yes, you should choose.
Okay. Well, tell me why.
If you have the facts, not saying you look up online and all that fun jazzy stuff, if you look up the facts and you, per se, talked to one of them and they give you their side of the story, then yeah, you would choose the Israels. But then if you also talk to somebody on the other side of it and you think that they were doing the wrong, then choose them. But again, in the end, it's your choice and your decision whether you want to do the right and the wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I like to look at it like this, and this is where I think I'm going to pick a side.
That's your
Because
decision.
I think what you should do as a Christian when you're talking about this, the first thing that you should do is you should definitely pray.
Yes, most definitely.
You should definitely pray. You should in earnest get into a place that you can pray by yourself. Just have a powwow with you and the God of the universe.
Sit in your car and do it.
And just sit
What
in
I
your
do.
car, in your
little
house,
nook or something.
in the bathroom,
Yes.
in the
That's why you're getting
shower.
the shower.
Anywhere. After you listen to this podcast, you should pray about it.
Yes.
That's the first thing I tell every Christian. Whenever you have a big decision, something that's weighing heavily on your heart. Let's just say that you were arguing with somebody at work. You were arguing with your spouse, with your significant other. You were arguing with your brother, your mom, your sister, your coworker, whoever you were arguing with. You get that argument and you find yourself wondering, what side should I take?
Yep.
I think the number one thing you should do is pray. And then when you pray in earnest, I want you to listen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen because I really think that this is what Christians should be considering when it comes to whether or not they should support Palestine or whether or not they should support Israel. Mm-hmm. And I just had to say it like this. It's plain and simple.
It's written
This whole thing, this whole conflict is about the hate of Jewish people.
Yes.
It's about a religion that we know that actively supports the hate of Jewish people and really anybody that is not them.
Yes.
Okay? Christianity is a little bit different. For those of you that are still listening, Christianity does not support the hate of anyone that is not Christian. But this specific religion that I'm mentioning here, that Hamas is a radical practitioner of as a whole, actively hates anyone who is not them.
Yep. This is true.
And this is a hate of Jewish people that's been going back thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, anti-Semitism is a real thing.
Yep.
I mean, you don't even need to go back that far to see clear-cut examples of anti-Semitism.
Yep.
How Satan truly, truly hates the chosen people of God.
Yes.
Satan-
Every day he tries to make something worse for those said people. Every day he tries.
Satan most recently is using Hamas.
Yes.
Before that, he was using a different group of people. Before that, and you go even less than 100 years ago, you can see Hitler.
Yeah.
World War II.
Oh,
Millions of Jews.
Yeah.
Millions of Jews actually thrown into concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not like a catchphrase.
No.
Like some people say, oh, well, Palestine is an open air concentration camp. No.
Yeah.
We're not throwing catchphrases. We're not throwing media bombs at people to catch attention. We're saying that the Jewish people were actually put into concentration camps with the express purpose of working them and starving them to death and then ultimately throwing them into gas chambers and murdering them.
Yep.
On a massive scale. You can look at it in the Bible. You can look at it in our real history. It's funny how, and if you're a Christian, you're listening to this, I want you to listen to what I'm saying. It is not funny. Funny is the wrong term.
No.
It is not even ironic. It is It is eye-opening
This is true.
how the Bible and real life tend to fall into line with each other. It's almost like the whole idea that history repeats itself
Yeah.
is shown actively in life, where you have the Bible, a historical document, being repeated in modern times.
Yes.
Which does two things for me. One, it shows you that the Bible is a historical document and not just some fantasy written by random people. Okay, it's a historical document that tells about the plight of the Israelites and about our need for a savior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole gospel is rounded out in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That is all rounded up. That is a truth. That is a core concept of the gospel.
You're right.
But it also shows,
it.
yeah, it also shows that history repeats itself.
Yeah. Which it technically is.
Yep. And we see it.
Every day.
And we see that the enemies of Israel, of God's chosen people, ideologically should be the enemies of Christians.
Yeah.
Now, as Christians, we are told to love one another and to turn the other cheek, but that doesn't mean that they're not our enemies. That doesn't mean that if given the opportunity, that they wouldn't just kill us on the spot.
Correct.
Would a Jewish person kill you on the spot? No.
No.
But would a radical Muslim kill you on the spot?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They have so much hate and anger in them that they're just like, all right, cool. So we're gonna.
It is beaten into them from birth
Yes. Correct.
to hate anyone who is not them.
Yeah.
They are, in today's society, they like to use terms of hate like racism.
Yeah.
Racism is a big deal in our society.
Oh my gosh.
We want to talk about racism. We want to talk about classism. We want to talk about all these isms.
We can get on to a whole other
But
podcast on that.
they are the ultimate perpetrators of isms.
Yes.
These radical Muslim people. And I mean radical. I have met Muslim people who are some of the nicest people in the world.
Yeah. So have I.
Do I think that they're going to hell? Yes. Do I love them with all of my heart? Yes.
And it's not their fault.
Would I be worried about them
Oh,
if I was in a
definitely.
room with them? No. They you know, their culture is deeper and richer than just the religion they follow. I'm talking specifically about these radical Muslims.
Yeah.
The ones that are controlling the Gaza Strip. These radical Muslims will kill. They even kill each other. They kill
Yeah.
Muslims who don't fall into a line. You're a woman who showed your face to somebody before you were married. Guess what? You're getting beaten and stoned to death.
Yep.
You're dying. You're a man that did something with that isn't even that big of a deal, but it goes against their moral code of ethics or whatever. Beaten to death. You're dying.
Yep.
You're a child that did something wrong. Good luck. They probably use you for the next bombing attempt. They send the kid over. You know, I wonder if that's how they punish the children over there. You know, they literally strap bombs to their chest and go, "Hey, guess what? You're the next contestant on Be an IED." And it's sad, but it's true. So as a Christian, you need to understand this. You understand that it's clear whose side you should be on.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible gives us all of the proof and evidence with this. The Bible tells us about how Egypt wanted to destroy the Jews. When Pharaoh gave the order to murder Jewish baby boys in Exodus. Or when ancient Persia wanted to eradicate the Jews in Esther. You had so many examples in the Bible of how the Jews suffered at the hands of other people wanting to kill them because they were Jews.
Yep.
And God saw fit to save the Israelites because he was their chosen people. And God could very well be using us as Christians in America to be able to support and save his chosen people from the evil that is going on over there. So as a Christian, it's clear. It's clear. I don't know if you guys feel similarly to that or what your thoughts or opinion on that, but it's very clear to me that if you're a Christian, you support Israel.
Yeah, there's that.
Even if you don't like what is going on over there with those women and children, that doesn't mean that you place the blame on God.
No.
You place the blame on the men, the evil men that are actively putting their own women and children to that situation. Because the way that I look at it is this: pure and simple righteousness versus unrighteousness.
Yes.
if these people feared God like they should, if they feared retaliation like they should, and they didn't worship an evil demon, whoever their Allah is not God. And they like to, and I remember when I was younger, people said, "Oh, Allah and God are the same. We're worshiping the same God." I'm like, "No, we're not.
They're
No,
two
we're
different
not.
people.
No, we're not. You're worshiping Satan. You're worshiping somebody else. You're not worshiping my God. It is not the same God.
No.
Whatever God they're worshiping, it's probably Baphomet or some other, or Baal or Satan himself. They're worshiping some other God, and they're calling it Allah, but it's not Allah. Because if it was Allah, he would not be having you march across to his chosen people. And what's crazy is that if you look at the Quran, and you look at the Torah, and you look at all these documents, I mean, it's obvious to see that the Hebrews, the Jews, are God's chosen people. But for some reason, your God is telling you that you need to go over there and kill all the Jews? Nah, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
That's where you need to figure
Yeah.
out if is this what you need to figure out where the right and the wrong is. Are you feeling that he's telling you that what you're hearing from him is true, or are you feeling somewhere in your gut saying like, no, this don't sound right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you need to be the one to choose to be your righteous savior, and whether or not you want to save yourself or not to.
Yeah.
That's wherein lies the question for yourself.
And I think it's important to mention while we're on that topic, it's important to mention that there is this ideology in modern Christian churches called the replacement theology.
Yeah.
It basically says this, that God is done with Israel, and that the church, the believers in Jesus Christ, have taken the place of Israel. That Israel, the current Israel that we see, they're no longer God's chosen people. That believers in Christ are God's chosen people. But there is a problem with that.
Yeah.
Let me explain something to you. And this is going to sound funny, but where do babies come from?
A woman.
Come from a man and a woman, right? Do you think that there is not Jewish descendantry spread all throughout the world?
Most definitely.
Particularly here in the United States. A lot of people that are born here in the United States, even people living in Palestine, even people that are in Europe, my ancestry. Matter of fact, I just found this out recently, not too long ago, that my grandfather, my mother's dad, okay? So my grandmother was Taino.
Okay.
Okay? She was Taino. She's very Taino. She had basically all native islander blood in her. She married a man whose lineage, his father, was actually a German Jewish person.
Really?
Yep. He was a German Jew. He escaped the Holocaust. Just before the Holocaust happened, when all of that conflict was happening there in the World War I, his family came and moved to Puerto Rico to escape it. And he was a German Jew, or what they call Ashkenazi Jew. He was an Ashkenazi Jew. Okay? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until recently. So you have a German Jewish person who moves from over there, comes over here, starts a new life in Puerto Rico, falls in love and meets this Taino woman, has my mother, and then basically my mother's mother runs away from him. Is like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Yep, this is a true story. This is what I found out happened. And then we just follow the lineage along to my mother, who gets with a man, and get this, my father also has a very similar story from a Middle Eastern Jew.
What?
Yep. A Middle Eastern Jew from the Levant area moved to Cuba on my father's side.
Okay.
And had a child with my great great grandmother on my father's side. So I actually have Jew on both sides of my family, but I'm not Jewish. I'm not, if you look at my face, you're like, this guy's not Jewish at all. He doesn't have the Jewish hair or any of the phenotypes of what you would consider to be a Jew. But I just found this out recently because I was doing genealogy research, and my mother, who lives with me, was like, hey, I've done this all before. Here's what I got. And I was like, wait a minute. I have like 5% Jewish bloodline? And the thing is that I would challenge you as a person to not find that within yourself.
Right.
Because the Jews were a huge nation. The entire book of Numbers tells you just how many hundreds of thousands of Jews there were across all the different tribes of Israel. They were a prolific people in ancient times. And they spread all across the nation. The Bible tells us that he promised Abraham that your offspring will be like the grains of sand. They will be numerous.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people in this world, even people living in Palestine today, that share their ancestry back to the original 12 tribes of Israel. And I would challenge a lot of Christians today that maybe, perhaps, when you think about this, when you think about this ideology that God's chosen people are no longer Jew, hey, I joined Christianity. I was drawn to Christianity. God called me out of the masses before I even knew that I had Jew in me. You think that that's a coincidence?
Probably.
I don't think that's a coincidence at all. I think I might be chosen because I have Jewish ancestry in me. And I think that a lot of Christians, when they push back against their roots and they go digging, they might find that they have Jewish ancestry too.
Yeah.
Even looking at you, I mean, I don't think, it's not impossible at all that if you go back maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 generations, that there is somebody that was Jewish that led to you being who you are today.
I know. As far as I know, I'm German, Irish, and Italian.
German. Maybe you have Ashkenazi Jews somewhere in your lineage.
Probably do.
Ashkenazi Jews were in Germany for hundreds of years, for a long time. They migrated from the Middle Eastern area to Europe and went into Germany. Those are called Ashkenazi Jews. You can look it up. You might have Jew in your blood and you don't even know it. How could you know it?
I've always wanted to do that whole ancestry thing.
Look it up. Do some research.
To.
And here you are in a church chosen by God to be on this podcast to spread this message, with other people. And I just find that so ironic. So if you're a Christian, the first thing you should do is find out. You might be part Jewish. Maybe that's why you're a Christian in the first place. I mean, I'm not drawing parallels here and saying like that's definitely what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that a lot of people they preach this ideology that maybe the Jews have been replaced. No. The Jews have been made numerous.
Yeah.
Well, they're everywhere. And I'm not going to say we,
Yeah.
But technically, by birthright, I could say we are everywhere.
Yes.
We are everywhere.
Yeah.
Even if you're just 1% Jew, do you think God really cares about that? No. He promised Abraham that his offspring would be numerous, like grains of sand in the world.
Yeah.
So, do you think God at that time really cared about whether or not you were 100% Jew?
No.
I don't even think that the people living in Israel right now that call themselves Jews are 100% Jew.
Right.
Because they look like you go over there, you look at pictures, there's dark-skinned ones, there's light-skinned ones, there's red-toned ones. I mean, there are Jews that look like Mexicans, they look like Chinese people, they look like Japanese people, they look like Germans, they look like Africans. The Jewish culture is not just it's not just one thing, you have Jewish culture everywhere. And I would guess if I had to put my salvation on it, that a lot of these people out here that are perpetrating this idea that God has replaced the Jewish people, a lot of them would find that they also have Jewish ancestry.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to me that you would even think that. So I don't know what it is, but that is something that I wanted to make a point as a Christian, because if you are actively believing in that ideology, I think you're wrong.
Agreed.
I really don't know how else to touch on that.
I think we've hit all of the hard-hitting questions of curiosity is killing the cat and whether or not what's going on and all the other one does.
Yeah, I want to finish this topic off with a scripture. It tells us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. It's Psalm 122, verse 6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We should do that together. I think that's a great idea. We should all pray. When we get off this podcast, I want you guys to go pray for peace in Israel. Also, pray for those people living in Palestine.
Most definitely.
Pray for the people that have been displaced, that have lost their lives, that have lost loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know right now my heart goes out to those children over there.
Oh, most definitely mine does too.
Yeah, and those women that have lost everything. Simply put, because they were born into that situation and they trusted in those men, and those evil men over there led them astray.
Yep.
So I pray for them, and I pray for the men too, because there's probably a lot of peaceful Palestinians. There's probably a lot of Palestinian men
that they had no choice.
They just wanted to live, and they just wanted to work.
They
And
just
you got
wanted
these,
to live a normal life, but that got taken away from them.
Yeah, and you got it's like, just imagine if your neighbor was just like, "Hey, Bill, you wanna go jump over this fence over here and go kill you some Israelis?" And like Bill's like, "No, dude, I would like to just go to work and feed my family."
To facts. Agreed.
So there's probably a lot of men out there like that, and I pray for them too.
Yep.
So, anyway, that's it. Hey, if you made it to the end
Yay.
of Faith Forge podcast, where we are forging faith every single day,
Facts.
we're forging faith. If you made it to the end, I want to congratulate you. This is our very first podcast.
Yay.
There are going to be so many
So
more to
much
come,
more.
and we're going to be talking about all of these great topics. If you want us to answer any of your questions, feel free to reach out to us. Put it in the comment section down below. If you have any criticisms, if you don't agree with us, hey, you know what? I would love for somebody to just go, "You guys suck," and put it in the comment section. You know why? Because that helps the algorithm.
We learned.
We'll get more
We
views.
learned.
We'll get more views. So please tell us why we were wrong in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Amen, amen, amen.
Amen.